Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of all the corporate jargon and find the real story behind the numbers. Today we are looking at cbdMD Incorporated's latest filing, and let's just say it has got some year. And numbers that are interesting before we dive in if you like getting these unfiltered looks at company reports. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our Discord community linked below. So what we have here is a current report, essentially an update to the public about some key business happenings. For cbdMD Incorporated, the big news coming out is about their preliminary net revenues for the fourth quarter and the entire fiscal year that ended on the 30th of September 2025. Think of this as a sneak peek at how they wrapped up their year financially before the full audited numbers come out. Now, these reports filed with the US Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, are super important because they're meant to keep investors informed about what is going on with publicly traded companies. This particular one is an 8K form, which is used to announce major events that shareholders should know about. The filing itself was made on the 25th of November 2025, but it reports on events from the 21st of November 2025. So they are releasing preliminary revenue figures for the fiscal year that just ended. The company's stock trades on the Nice American under the ticker symbol YCBD, and their common stock is what we're looking at here. The core of this report is a press release dated the 21st of November 2025, which announces these preliminary results. It is important to remember these are preliminary, meaning they haven't been finalized or audited yet, so they could potentially change, but they give us a solid idea of performance. This press release is the main event here, attached as Exhibit 99.1. It contains the preliminary net revenues for both the fourth quarter and the full fiscal year up to the 30th of September 2025, along with some other operational data for those periods. Since these are just preliminary numbers, they are being furnished and not technically filed in the same way as the full financial statements. This means they don't carry the same legal weight in terms of liability under certain sections of securities law, but they absolutely give us insight into how the company is doing right out of the gate. Now, let's talk about what these preliminary revenue numbers might actually mean. When a company releases preliminary figures, it is usually a sign they want to get key performance indicators out to the market quickly, especially if they want to shape investor expectations. For a company like cbdMD Incorporated, whose business is likely tied to consumer spending and market trends in its sector, revenue is the top line indicator of how much product they are selling and how well their sales and marketing efforts are working. If these preliminary revenues show growth, it suggests that despite any economic headwinds or competitive pressures, cbdMD Incorporated has managed to increase its sales. This could be due to successful new product launches, effective marketing campaigns that are reaching more customers, or perhaps an expansion into new markets or distribution channels. On the flip side, if the preliminary revenues are flat or declining, it would signal potential challenges. This could mean increased competition, changing consumer preferences, or difficulties in their supply chain or distribution networks. The fact that they are mentioning specific periods like the fourth quarter and the full fiscal year ending the 30th of September 2025 is important. It allows us to compare these numbers to the same periods in the previous year. For example, if Q4 2025 revenues are up 10% from Q4 2024, that is a good sign of momentum carrying into the end of the year. Similarly, if the full fiscal year revenues have increased, it indicates sustained growth or a strong recovery over the 12 months. Understanding the context of the company is also crucial. cbdMD Incorporated operates in a specific industry, and its financial performance will be heavily influenced by broader trends within that sector. Factors like regulatory changes, consumer sentiment towards their product categories, and the activity of their competitors all play a significant role. So, while we are looking at the raw numbers here, we should also consider how these numbers stack up against the industry average, or the performance of key rivals. Looking at this filing, it essentially serves as an early warning system for investors and analysts. It allows us to start forming opinions about the companies before the full financial report is released. This practice of providing preliminary results is often seen when companies are either particularly pleased with their performance and want early recognition, or when they need to manage expectations due to significant deviations from previous forecasts. The report is signed by T. Ronan Kennedy, who holds the positions of Chief Executive Officer and Chief Financial Officer. Having the CEO also serve as CFO is quite common in smaller to medium-sized companies. It suggests a close oversight of the financial operations by the top executive. However, it can also mean a significant workload for one person, and potentially a lack of a completely independent financial voice within the top leadership. In this case, Mr. Kennedy's signature lends authority to these preliminary figures, but it is the numbers themselves and their implications that we'll focus on. So, what is the takeaway here? This report is all about setting the stage for the full financial disclosure. It is a way for cbdMD Incorporated to proactively communicate its preliminary revenue performance. These numbers, even in their early form, provide a vital snapshot of the company's sales health. We need to see the actual revenue figures themselves to draw deeper conclusions about growth or decline, and what that might mean for market share, profitability, and overall business strategy. Without the specific revenue numbers from that press release, it is hard to give a definitive picture. But the act of releasing these preliminary results tells us that the company wants us to be aware of its revenue trajectory as the fiscal year closes. Now, looking at this from a Warren Buffett style analysis, we want to understand the underlying business. Is the company selling more products? Are customers sticking around? Revenue is the lifeblood. A growing revenue stream suggests the company is creating value that customers are willing to pay for. However, growing revenue isn't the whole story. We also need to consider costs and profitability, which will be detailed in the full financial statements. But for now, these preliminary numbers are our first clue. The inclusion of operational data alongside revenue is smart. It suggests the company is providing context for its sales performance. For instance, if revenues are up, but operational efficiency metrics are down, that might signal problems with increased costs of sales or less efficient production. Conversely, if revenues are up and operational metrics are improving, it paints a much more positive picture of sustainable growth. Let's consider the risks. The main risk here is that these preliminary numbers are not representative of the final audited results. They could be accounting adjustments or reclassifications that alter the final figures. Another risk is how the market will react to these numbers. Even if the revenues are good, if they fall short of market expectations or analyst forecasts, the stock price could still react negatively. On the opportunity side, strong preliminary revenue growth could signal a successful strategy execution. It might indicate that cbdMD Incorporated is capturing market share or benefiting from favorable industry tailwinds. This could set the company up for a strong fiscal year ahead, potentially attracting new investors and partnerships. However, without the actual revenue figures, this report is like looking at a movie trailer without seeing the movie. We get a sense of what is coming, but the full impact and narrative are missing. The key now is to await the full 10-K filing, which will contain the audited financial statements, including the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. That is where we'll get the real meat of the financial story. Overall, this 8K filing serves as an important communicative tool. It shows a company being somewhat transparent by giving an early look at its top-line performance. It is a good practice to keep an eye on these preliminary releases, as they often precede more detailed and scrutinized financial reports. cbdMD Incorporated seems to be signaling something about their end of year sales, and we will be watching closely for those definitive numbers to understand the full picture of their financial health and strategic direction. Alright, that is our breakdown of this preliminary report from cbdMD Incorporated. What are your thoughts on companies releasing preliminary financial results? Do you find them helpful, or are they just a way to manage expectations? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this analysis useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. And don't forget to join our Discord community, linked in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.